Tuesday, December 21st, Just Baseball Show. Jack McMullen, Peter Apple. Does my hair suck?
No. See, it doesn't. I actually kind of like it. So I was looking at it last night, and this is what I compared it to. It seemed like you had just made your biggest big seller on the author list. I don't even know how really to explain that. You're a best-selling author. That's kind of what you look like, but it's not like that you've been that for a long time. It's like you just got your first book and then you got the big haircut. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. So I was wearing this like thick Gap sweater last night, and I totally looked like a hipster douchebag. And I think that was the vibe. Like, if you walked into not a Starbucks, if you walked into a one-off coffee shop in like downtown, I don't know, let's say just in the Silicon Valley.
Okay.
You know, I'm the one person that lives in the Silicon Valley that's not in tech, right? Like, I'm the author that lives at home.
Yeah, but
sits in the coffee shop.
But you live the same lifestyle and you associate with those same people. It's just that you have a different job title.
Right. And I go home and I tell my wife, I'm not like those people.
I'm not like those people, but I'm almost worse than those people.
Man, how's Florida? Did you enjoy Hard Rock Stadium seeing the shittiest football game ever?
It wasn't that bad of a football game for one reason and one reason only. The Jets covered 10.5. I mean, that's what I care about. What a Sunday, 3-0. And then I just force it on Sunday Night Football. But Florida, it's hard to leave this place. You know, there's no taxes. You go to a store and it's like, oh, this is $5. It's actually $5. It's not $9 like it might be in New York City. Yeah. The weather is beautiful until it's not, but then it goes right back to being beautiful. But I will be in Santa Barbara tomorrow, and which you'll see some plain bathroom NFL picks for Tuesday Night Football.
Cool.
But I got your Bears tonight. I know this always comes out the day after, but I like, you know, letting the people know what our thoughts are before we enter that conversation.
Yeah, I don't have my Bears tonight. I think the Vikings are going to have
plus
600 yards.
Plus 7.
I think the Vikings are going to have 600 yards of total offense, and I think 590 of them are going to come through the air. No Jalen Johnson, no Eddie Jackson. There's another corner that's not playing, but I haven't cared to learn that name.
The problem
they're not good.
But the thing is, you know what's weird? Since 2018, the Bears are 5 for 6 against the Vikings, not against the spread, straight up winning the game. The Bears always play the Vikings really tough. And I feel like the Vikings have had better teams than this before, and the Bears have had worse teams than this before.
Yes, true. I don't know. And the NFL is also a crapshoot, so we'll see.
And the Bears are at home, and they got to cover a touchdown. I'm not saying they're going to beat them out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I think they'll keep it close. You know, it's not going to be that entertaining of a football game if you really think about it.
Okay, so if you needed to live in one spot for the rest of your life, is it Miami or is it Santa Barbara?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Not Miami. I like Boca Raton and Fort Lauderdale where I'm at right now, probably over Miami.
Yeah.
Santa Barbara. I mean, Santa Barbara's not the biggest baseball town. I mean, you're 2 hours out of LA, but at least being in South Florida, you're next to all the spring training stuff and everything is a quick drive away. But California really is everything too. I need more life experience before making a definitive decision because I still do like New York City.
Yeah.
Even though we complain about it a lot. There's a reason I'm living there. I do like it.
Yeah. The bodega. You like the bodega.
I like the bodega. And I also saw there was a headline this morning that bodega, it was this hilarious headline that was actually sent from my friend. It was like, is the bodega adding big tech?
What does that mean?
I don't know. I didn't read it because I was like, that's enough headline for me to even just like stay away for a little bit. I didn't read into the story even a little bit.
Is that when the bodega adds Apple Pay? Is that big tech?
No, I think it's, I mean, my bodega has Apple Pay. I don't know what the big tech development is, but I will say the bodega has everything else covered. So all they need to do is add big tech and they're a colossal giant.
Your bodega sold out with Apple Pay, man. They're frauds. They don't stick to their guns. We've got another Hall of Fame episode coming your way right now. And now we start to get into the guys where there's an actual argument to be made about him. I've got Billy Wagner, Omar Vizquel, and Roger Clemens today. Who are your three?
I got Bobby Abreu, Scott Rollin, and Andy Pettitte. And the first two that I named I had so much fun writing these guys up because there are stats that you can pull up and you're like, wait a minute, they're on a short list of incredible players, but maybe those names don't jump out at you and you're like, oh yeah, no doubt he's Hall of Famer. Maybe like a Roger Clemens might, but these guys, they deserve as much consideration as anybody else. They're really good.
Yeah, they're the best of the rest. Scott Rollin and Bobby Abreu, right? And Billy Wagner, I think, is in the best of the rest.
Oh yeah.
I had a good time scratching my legal itch with Omar Vizquel and Roger Clemens. I really enjoyed diving into, with Clemens, his court case, Vizquel with the recent shit that he's gotten himself into. I enjoyed it personally. I'm sure they don't enjoy that because that is their downfall now. And I'm going to get into a certain clause in the Hall of Fame voting that's going to hurt them. But I don't know. I've had such a blast doing the Hall of Fame stuff with you because I think that we just get into like the greater human truths of these guys. And we look at it in this 4D lens that, I think a lot of the voters do, but I don't think a lot of the voters are as transparent about. I think a lot of people just put out their ballot and say no questions. And I'm not a fan of that. I think that Just Baseball, I think that somebody involved with Just Baseball should get a Hall of Fame ballot down the road. Not right now, but like down the road. I'm saying 20 to 30 years from now, they should get one. And how
about a collective one where all of us get to actually decide and we do it live? And that'd be really fun.
Let's change the game. Let's do it. But yeah, no, I just think that we've got a group of people that work with Just Baseball that think about this by attacking it from all walks of life. And I don't know. I think that's a very fun thing to do.
And what's so much fun about this is the Hall of Fame is celebrating the history of baseball. So as we've gone through all of these different players, starting as early as 1970, going all the way up to the 21st century, we've really been able to celebrate the history of baseball and kind of tell a story through all these guys, because that's what it's supposed to do. Hall of Fame is supposed to tell the story of baseball. So it's almost fun to do that exact thing by going over all these guys.
Yeah, all three of my guys have historical significance. All three of your guys have historical significance. I just had a friend earlier today text me an article that I haven't read yet. It's from StatHead, and the title is Player Batting Comparison, Tony Gwynn versus Bobby Abreu.
Yep, I'm going to get into it.
You're going to get into it? Okay. Do you want to start? I feel like we should end the pod with Clemens.
I'm down to end the pod with Clemens. So why don't we just start right off the bat with Bobby Abreu? People sleep on Bobby Abreu big time. Abreu came up as a 22-year-old with the Astros, played the bulk of his career with the Phillies, and finished up with the Yankees, then the Angels, then the Dodgers over 18 seasons. On the surface, the accolades straight up don't cut it. He never finished in the top 10 of MVP voting. He was only a two-time All-Star and a singular Gold Glove in right field. But here's why Bobby Abreu should get your vote. Bobby Abreu finished with a career WAR of 60.5. That's ahead of players like Sammy Sosa, Yogi Berra, Mike Piazza, and Vladimir Guerrero. Bobby Abreu finished with a .395 on-base percentage, which is higher than Tony Gwynn, Mark McGwire, Gary Sheffield, and Miguel Cabrera. Bobby Abreu finished his career with 288 home runs and 400 stolen bases. Of players in Major League Baseball history, only Barry Bonds, Ricky Henderson, Craig Biggio, and Bobby Bonds can say the same. Bobby Abreu should be a Hall of Famer.
Wow. Yeah, for some reason, and I think it's because my formative years in baseball came after he was his speed demon self. And you know what? He kind of kept the stolen bases going throughout the entirety of his career. I mean, when he was 36 years old, he had 24 bags. 35-year-old, he had 30 bags. I mean, for some reason, I just view Bobby Abreu as that angel and that Dodger, right? That was just a little bit slower. He was that big burly guy, but I think that's because that's when we really fell in love with baseball and started watching Bobby Abreu. But I mean, if you just look back at what Bobby Abreu did with the Astros to start, and then the Phillies, obviously, if he gets in, he's going in as a Philly. I mean, this guy Like, this guy was one of the fastest dudes in the game. Also, something underrated, the power might not necessarily have been there. He did have a 30 homer season, but this guy had 7 consecutive years from 2001 to 2009 of 100 plus RBIs.
Yep.
7 consecutive years.
How about this? Not even just the RBIs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 consecutive years of over 100 walks. And why I think that is important, because I think in the early 90s or late 90s, early 2000s, when he was really coming into his own, on base percentage wasn't as valued as of a stat as it is now. So I think when we look back with a new lens, you really start to appreciate the value that Bobby Abreu had. And also the thing with the voting, and Aram and I were just talking about this, guys who clearly took steroids, the A-Rods, the Manny Ramirez's, maybe Bobby Abreu can get your vote now, and you save A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, guys like that for another time, because they can continue to be on the ballot. But Bobby Abreu should get one of those 10 votes, because you have 10 votes on a ballot, and maybe let them sit for a little bit. They're not going to go off the ballot. This is A-Rod's first year. What do you think about that?
I like it.
Because we're about to probably say that 14 of these guys should be Hall of Famers, but you only have 10 votes. So when we actually do the vote at the end of all of this, I think if we have to leave somebody off, it might be A-Rod or Manny. And then we put Abreu there, not saying that A-Rod and Manny shouldn't be Hall of Famers, but they should get in line, wait their turn for a guy like that. And another guy who I'm hearing gets so much love is Jeff Kent, who we haven't covered yet, who I think should be a Hall of Famer. But Bobby Abreu objectively had a better career than Jeff Kent did in terms of WAR. I mean, the only thing that Kent really had more was home runs.
Yeah.
But Bobby Abreu clearly just had the better overall career. And I think, it's just Bobby Abreu is one of the better all-around players in baseball history. He could just do everything across the diamond. I mean, saying one of the better, there are a lot of really good players.
That was a little aggressive.
That was a little aggressive. But what I mean by that is there was nothing that I see in his stats when I watched him play that he was bad at. He was so well-rounded. And, it's hard to come by that.
Yeah, he was a career 291 hitter with a 395 OBP. That's really impressive. I always look at, when I look at plate discipline, obviously you look at walk rate, you look at zone control, you look at all the advanced stats that you possibly can. But the most simple way to look at plate discipline is the difference between your batting average and your on-base percentage. And I love seeing guys with an 100-point or more difference between batting average and on-base percentage. And that's what Bobby Abreu was. 395 for his career.
While hitting 290. So you're a borderline 300 guy and you're a 400 OBP guy. His career slugging clip, by the way, 475. There were consistently years that Bobby Abreu put up 300, 400, 500 as a slash line. That is an MVP candidate, 300, 400, 500. So Bobby Abreu doing this clean, by the way, in the steroid era is really impressive. He gets my vote too. And I like your idea of stockpiling votes. I've got this thought that I didn't know how to put into words until very recently. Like, I'm talking this morning. I had no idea how to put my thoughts on the steroid conversation in. I'm going to get to it after I run through Clemens at the end of the pod, but like I figured out my way to a kind of draw the line there. You know what I mean? For steroid users. And for Bobby Abreu, like, that conversation's not there because he was doing all this without synthetic drugs. Like, that's really impressive. The longevity matters, because a lot of guys that we've been talking about too, they fell off or they only played 13 seasons due to injuries. This is not the case. He turned in a Hall of Fame worthy career. And you can see it when we talk about WAR, the way he's ahead of those guys. I thought it was simply amazing. Arm and I were just going over some stats. The fact that he's one of 5 players in MLB history with 250 home runs at least and 400 stolen bases. One of 5. Power speed combo. That is crazy to me.
That's the jam.
That's the jam. Bobby Abreu may not seem like it, but he should get your vote for the Hall of Fame.
Omar Vizquel. Omar Vizquel. Most Gold Gloves all time. Greg Maddux with 18. Jim Cott comes after with 16. Both pitchers. Brooks Robinson leads all position players along with Ivan Rodriguez. Ozzie Smith had 13 as a shortstop. Roberto Clemente, Keith Hernandez, Willie Mays, and then Omar Vizquel. He's one of the top 10 defensive players of all time. Cott got in with the Veterans Committee this year. Keith Hernandez isn't in the Hall. Everybody that I just mentioned is in the Hall of Fame besides Omar Vizquel. He's the only other shortstop I mentioned besides Ozzie Smith. Omar Vizquel, not speaking hyperbolically, is one of the best defenders in baseball history and the second best defensive shortstop ever. Ever. When you run into problems on the field is with him at the plate. He finished 123 hits shy of 3,000 in his career, which is, the automatic get in if you get to 3,000 hits in your career. But that's because he played for 24 years. He's a career 272 hitter with an OPS under 700. Under 700. He's a career 33 offensive WAR guy in 24 years. Defensively, a Hall of Famer. Offensively, not a Hall of Famer. If the conversation stopped there, I'd say on his defensive prowess and his raw accumulation of hits alone, he's got a bust in Cooperstown. But the conversation doesn't stop there. This past August, a lawsuit was filed against Vizquel accusing him of sexually harassing a former bat boy when he was managing the Birmingham Barons in 2019. He was a minor league manager after his playing career. The language in the lawsuit accuses Vizquel of, quote, sexually aggressive behavior and at least 5 occasions of deliberate exposure to the young man. He was 25 years old. So I'm going to give you the character clause in the Baseball Writers Association of America's election rules from the Hall of Fame. This comes from the Baseball Hall of Fame. Quote, voting shall be based upon the player's record, playing ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, and contributions to the teams on which the player played. I can't commemorate someone like that. It's a no for me because he so violates the character clause in the Baseball Hall of Fame's election rules. Like, he is not a good person. Same reason I'm going to say no to Curt Schilling. Omar Vizquel should not be a Hall of Famer because he has tainted his life off the field.
I think Curt Schilling is a Hall of Famer, but I just don't think Omar Vizquel is a Hall of Famer. And I thought it was a great point, the fact that you contextualize the amount of hits, 2,877, with the amount of years that he played.
24 years.
He never had above 200 hits once in his career. He slugged 352 for his career. He's Andrelton Simmons if Andrelton Simmons played 24 years in baseball.
Yeah.
He's an incredible defender. It can't get you into the Hall of Fame. And then you just add the character. Let's say you eliminate all character. Like, he was the perfect citizen in his entire life. He's still not a Hall of Famer.
I disagree. I think he is because, like,
I don't think he is.
But he's one of the best defensive players of all time. He's the second best defensive shortstop of all time.
But the Hall of Fame is like, the more I go through this, I'm like, it's so hard to get into. It is so hard to get into. Andrew Jones is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, even though I think you could make the argument that Andrew Jones might be a better all-time defender than Omar Vizquel. Maybe not, but he's in that conversation. But Andrew Jones had a prolific offensive career, 434 home runs. Like, he was just much better of an offensive player, and he's not just a direct line in. I don't think that even if he was perfectly clean, that he would be a Hall of Famer. What number cuts it offensively? Like, not one number.
Not one.
Cuts it. Not one. Like not even the 3,000 hit mark. Not one. He's not a Hall of Famer.
Well, we're agreeing, but we're disagreeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think if he was just a model citizen, I don't know. I'm just a defensive. I love defense. Like,
he hit more than 7 home runs once in a season.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't care about the power.
I know, but that's nuts. Like, he didn't hit more than 7 home runs. He only hits more than 7 home runs once, like in 24 seasons.
Yeah. I don't know. But the thing is, if he rattled off like 4 seasons at 200 hits, I'd say, okay, yeah, boom, there we go.
But he didn't. Like, he never had 200 hits in a season. Did he hit over 300 once?
Yeah, like he is a career 272 hitter with a 336 OBP.
He hit it over an 800 OPS once. Come on. Where is it? He had over 100 runs.
It's with the glove, dude.
So that's it? But like I said, Andrelton Simmons might be a Hall of Famer, though.
We're just literally yelling at a brick wall because we both said no because of the character issues. We could move on, but obviously we don't want to. Yeah, I don't know. It's because here's the thing. There's nobody that has ever played this game that was as good defensively and as bad offensively. It's a unique conversation with Omar Vizquel, right? No, you're laughing, but like,
no, but it's just funny. No, I know. It's funny. There's truth in comedy. That's why I'm laughing. Like it's correct, and that's why it's funny.
I think it's comedy and truth, right?
There's comedy and truth. There's truth in comedy. Yeah, there's comedy and truth. Yeah,
there's comedy and truth. Yeah, no,
there's truth. Well, there is truth in comedy. Technically,
yes, there is. No, I mean, like, Omar Vizquel is the worst of the best and the best of the worst. So he is I think he's more the worst of the best. He is the worst hitter of the best defensive players.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about let's talk about a guy who was incredibly defensively and actually hit really well.
Yeah, let's move on.
His name is Scott Rollin. So Roland had a cup of coffee in the bigs as a 21-year-old before jumping into the limelight with a Rookie of the Year nod, finishing with 56 extra base hits and an 846 OPS. He followed that up with the season next up with 76 extra base hits, a 923 OPS, a top 20 MVP finish, and a Gold Glove. He went on to be a 7-time All-Star and a World Series champion over 17 incredible seasons. Just talking about Gold Gloves for a second. Nobody has 5 Gold Gloves or more as a third baseman and is not in the Hall of Fame. Scott Rollin has 8. Emphasis on phenomenal when it comes to his defense, which might explain his 70.1 WAR, which is higher than Manny Ramirez, Tony Gwynn, and Pudge Rodriguez, which puts him 10th all time among third basemen. But let's get back to the plate, because that's the only reason he might not make the Hall of Fame, but he should make the Hall of Fame. He was a great all-around hitter, 316 career home runs, over 2,000 hits, and his 162 game average for his career was 281, 364 on base percentage with a 490 slugging, 25 bombs, and 102 RBIs with a 122 OPS plus. He's also a stand-up dude with no demons in the closet. Let Scott Rollin in the Hall of Fame already.
Shout out Evansville, Indiana.
And he's right now, I think he's at 53% of the vote. He's on his 5th year or 6th year on the ballot. I don't know what the holdup is. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a top 10 third baseman of all time. What are we talking about here?
The holdup is the voters. And the holdup is the talent that has been on some previous ballots, right? I mean, 2020, there was nobody inducted, which was bullshit, like total bullshit. But Scott Rollin, I mean, he was a victim of Mariano Rivera appearing on the ballot, and Randy Johnson and Pedro Martinez and all these guys appearing on the ballot when he was on there too. So damn, you're not going to. But
you have 10 votes, Jack. Why are people voting for 2 or 3?
Nobody uses the 10 votes.
Ridiculous,
dude.
Why
listen,
not?
you ask me that question.
I know,
and I don't have an answer
Jack?
For you. I don't know. Let's get all of them on the pod. Let's do the same episode. Just stack them up. Ask them the same question. Like, let's ask every person with a ballot the same question. Why don't you vote for 10? And then clip all those.
No questions. I'm above the law.
Sorry. No question.
God, I hate that.
Scott Rollin, sneaky 6'4", 250.
Yep.
He was a tank.
Stud. Scott Rollin was a stud.
He gets my vote. No problem. He gets my vote. I hope he gets in. Does he go in as a Philly or a Cardinal?
That's such a good question.
Played 844 games with the Phillies, 661 with the Cardinals.
I know I'm taking a long time to answer because I feel like this is a really tough question.
I bet he goes in as a Philly.
Yeah.
That's what he came up with.
He had some years with the Cardinals.
Cardinals pay
him. He's got to go in as a Philly. Yeah. But like, can't wear 2 hats, huh?
Can't wear 2 hats. That was the Piazza conversation, right? Who does Piazza go in with? And he chose the Mets.
I always felt like he should have gone in with the Mets. And if you know what, Phillies.
I agree. Phillies. We talk about the average WAR for a Hall of Famer often, 50 to 70. His career WAR 70.1.
There you go.
Above average for a Hall of Famer. Yeah,
above average for a Hall of not like he's just above average of the Hall of Famers. Yeah. Derek Jeter had a 71.3 career WAR. And I know maybe his defense was lackluster and then the offense is what carried that. But Scott Rollin was just well-rounded. He was a phenomenal defender. He was a great hitter. Maybe the cleanest guy on the ballot in terms of just being a stand-up dude. Like a great guy all around.
And the narrative around Scott Rollin is different than Derek Jeter. I mean, the narrative around Jeter being the captain of the Yankees, being that World Series hero, you'd think that his career WAR is like 4,000, but it's only 1 win better than Scott Rollin. That's not to knock Derek Jeter. That is saying Scott Rollin should be considered a really, really good player because, you look at the 70 career WAR, it was almost like 35 came on the offensive, 35 came on the defensive. And there we go.
And you were talking about Brooks Robinson earlier, who's like a crazy defender. I think he won 16 Gold Gloves in a row, 78 career WAR. He's one of the best of all time. Scott Rollin is in this conversation. Now, would you probably rather have Beltre? Arm and I were talking about this too. Would you rather have Beltre? Would you rather have a couple of these guys? I mean, Mike Schmidt's the GOAT. But Scott Rollin is a top 10 third baseman and of all time and should be in the Hall of Fame. That's what I got for you. I'm not making it too complicated. Yeah. Scott Rollin and another guy kind of like Bobby Abreu. Maybe if Manny Ramirez doesn't get that vote this turn around, Scott Rollin is getting my vote. But even with the steroid guys, like he's up there. He's really up there.
He's totally up there.
I like him. I was watching some video too. He just like is so sick. Like he's like Arenado, but like better.
He was.
We'll see at the end of his career.
Right, but he was Arenado before Arenado.
Exactly.
I
phenomenal
always
offensively, phenomenal defensively.
I always had this fever dream that made me happy of Scott Rollin and Troy Tulowitzki in the same infield. And then Arenado came along, but I was just like, if Roland was the third baseman and Tulowitzki was the shortstop, like that is, beat up old glove with the eye black. I mean, let's rock. You know what I mean? That would have been.
I just think over 17 years, and the reason why I read his stat line was like 281 with a 364 on base, 25 bombs and 100 RBIs. You get that year in and year out as one of the best defenders in the sport. That's offense and defense, not Vizquel. Like that is, that's a Hall of Famer. That's the difference. Like, these guys are so good defensively, maybe not quite to Vizquel, but phenomenal in their own right. And then they just blow the shit out of Vizquel in terms of offense.
Dude, I never said that Vizquel was offense and defense. I don't know why you're coming at me like this.
I'm more just coming at the idea of Omar Vizquel being a Hall of Famer if the character clause didn't get implemented.
Yeah.
Or no, if he was a perfect citizen.
Right. Let's talk about Billy Wagner. Cool?
Love him.
Here's the list of predominant relievers that are in the Hall of Fame. So the guys that spent the overwhelming majority of their career as relievers that are in the Hall of Fame. Mariano Rivera, Trevor Hoffman, Hoyt Wilhelm, Goose Gossage, Raleigh Fingers, Lee Smith, Bruce Sutter. Of the 267 former players enshrined, there are 7 relievers. I think Billy Wagner should be the 8th. He's got the 6th most saves in MLB history. He was a 7-time All-Star. He had 2 top 6 Cy Young finishes, which shows that he was overwhelmingly dominant. He had 2 years where he received MVP votes as a closer, and he struck out 11.9 guys per 9 innings over the course of his career. His problem is innings accumulation. Billy Wagner in his 903 career innings would make him the 3rd guy ever enshrined with under 1,000 innings of work. The other 2 are Hilton Smith and Leon Day, who both got in via the Veterans Committee. But I want you to think about when this guy racked up the accolades to even be considered for nomination. He played from 1995 to 2010. That was the steroid era, folks. These dudes juiced out of their freaking minds are getting 101 blown by their shoulders by 5'10" Billy Wagner. I think Billy Wagner's a Hall of Famer.
I'm going to go a step further. Billy Wagner is the 2nd best reliever of all time.
Wow. Better than Hoffman?
Maybe not in terms of accumulation, just in terms of the total amount of saves, the number of years. But if I want a reliever in there, outside of Mariano Rivera, to close out a 9th, it's Billy Wagner.
I think so too. Damn, I think so too.
Listen to this. So in 2000, he had an ERA of 6.18 and 6 saves in 27 innings. He was like hurt that year. We're going to discount that. Never an ERA above 2.85 in any season. He was so fucking good. So good. Year in, Billy Wagner, year out, till the end of his career. 2010, his last year with the Braves, 37 saves with a 1.43 ERA, 104 strikeouts in 69 innings. His last year, dude. What the hell?
This guy, like, he was, if you were too small, if you were in Little League and you were too small and you wanted to be a pitcher, if you were built like Jack Leiter or Marcus Stroman right now, you're growing up and you're watching Billy Wagner, 5'10", roll out of the pen. He was a skinny 5'10" too. It's not like he was built like a bulldozing running back, 5'10", 220 or anything like Trevor Rosenthal was built. I'm talking 5'10", 180 Billy Wagner. He just looked like a random dude you plucked out of the stands and threw a jersey on him, and then 101's coming at your face.
Yep.
He was the baddest motherfucker alive when we got to the 9th inning. In the steroid era. Think about that. I mean, you've got guys.
That's why.
Right? You've got guys with forearms like Popeye. Sorry. You've got guys with forearms like Popeye coming up, and there are globs of chaw just coming out of their mouth. It feels like a scene from Angels in the Outfield, right? When just a burly man is coming up to the plate, and you've got this little jabron on the hill, and he's like, oh my God, you have no idea what's coming right now. And then it just jumps on you. The way that he commanded a game mentally in the 9th inning is unlike anything people have seen aside from Rivera and Hoffman in recent memory.
So we ranked our top 5 favorite players of all time on justbaseball.com. You can listen to the reasoning, you can read our reasoning on justbaseball.com, and Pedro Martinez made my top 5. And the reason why I think Pedro Martinez is the greatest pitcher of all time was not only do his general statistics stack up with the greats, but he was doing it in the hardest era to pitch in in Major League history when you think about the steroid era. So that's why, for me, Pedro Martinez is the GOAT of pitching. Billy Wagner is in that same exact boat. The second greatest reliever of all time. And in terms of just straight dominance, there were times where, no, not better Mo. No, I was going to maybe try and wrap, not better Mo.
Come on now.
But besides Mo, this is the dude, Billy Wagner, throwing right here, right in the socket, right in your ear, like a catcher, like a piss missile from home to second base, except it's on the mound from a 5'10" lefty. And then he adds in the wipeout slider. He was a dog. Freaking dog.
It makes me smile ear to ear just hearing you say that, because like that was a guy that he was appointment television. And I think that the Hall of Fame, like if I had a ballot, I would be voting on guys that I thought were appointment television. That's the case, right? That's the greatest of all time argument there. I got to watch Alabama football. I'm going to be pissed if I don't see a Bama game because I got to see Nick Saban at work. I just watched LeBron play the Bulls last night because I got to see LeBron at work. I got to see Kevin Durant at work. I've got to see Brady at work on Sunday night, even though he sucked. Like, that's the thing. You know what I mean? When you're watching Billy Wagner, you knew it at the end of his career. When Billy Wagner was a Met, you said, I'm seeing something right now that doesn't come around too often. And that thought alone is enough for me to give you consideration. And 903 innings, it's not enough for anybody but Billy Wagner.
Exactly. Like, you have to be one of the greatest relievers of all time. And you
just called him
the second best reliever of all time.
Wow. Andy Pettitte.
And now you could make the argument for Hoffman. You could. And I get that. But
I like Billy.
I like Billy more. Andy Pettitte. So Andy Pettitte actually apologized and fessed up to taking steroids. Is that better than lying? Yes, absolutely. Does it make it okay? Like, no, it doesn't. But the steroid conversation kind of convolutes everything. So let's just talk about his career. Pettit debuted as a 23-year-old with the Yankees, finishing third in Rookie of the Year voting. He followed that up with a second-place finish in Cy Young voting in 1996. For the next 13 seasons between the Yankees and the Astros, he threw at least 200 innings. In 10 of those seasons, finishing top 6 in Cy Young voting 6 times and added 3 All-Star appearances. But he finished with a 3.85 career ERA and a career ERA plus of 117. Which is not going to cut it. Andy Pettitte and Cole Hamels are pretty much in the same boat. They were never the best pitcher in baseball or had an incredibly dominant peak, but both have a very respectable WAR that sits near 60. Pettitte should not make the Hall of Fame, but what nobody can take from him are his 5 World Series rings, and only 7 pitchers in MLB history can say the same.
That's crazy.
Huh. 5 rings, baby.
5 rings.
That's sick. That's the pedigree, the postseason. But like, he took steroids, like, definitely. And then even with steroids, like, you have to be above and beyond. And he wasn't above and beyond. He was a very solid pitcher. Yeah.
When you think about Pettitte, what do you think of?
I think about a guy who was incredibly steady. The 200 innings thing was a workhorse. You could always rely on an above average, a great start from Andy Pettitte, but he wasn't Roger Clemens. Like, he wasn't even CC Sabathia at his peak. Like, he wasn't we need a game, get Andy Pettitte in there. And I think to make the Hall of Fame, you need to be that, because it's the MLB Hall of Fame. These are the greatest players in history. Hall of very good. He just wasn't.
You think, tell me if this comp is just crazy. I view Andy Pettitte as if everything went right for John Lester for 15 years.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I mentioned Cole Hamels, because in the Phillies days, it was Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, like those guys. And then you had Cole Hamels, who was great. But like he was your 3. And then there were seasons where Cole Hamels really was that guy. And the postseason, similar to Andy Pettitte, it keeps their name in the limelight and it maybe makes you think they were a little bit better than you are. But the proof is in the pudding, like a 3.85 career ERA. And then you contextualize that to ERA plus 117. Like he was 17% better than average. I think that's exactly what he was. An above average, really solid pitcher who was great in the playoffs but not a Hall of Famer, which is okay because he still is. He'll be a Yankee Hall of Famer. Actually, will he be a Yankee Hall of Famer?
I don't think he'll be a Yankee Hall of Famer.
So
I don't know.
I don't have much more to say. Like I don't want to go into more about, bashing him more. Like I think he was a really good guy.
Yeah. That did steroids. Really good guy, did steroids. I just view Andy Pettitte and John Lester in similar lights. Like they were going to be the proven winner and the 2 on a World Series winning team. They like Lester. I understand that he was the 1 for a couple of World Series winning teams, and Pettitte could have been if he was given the opportunity, but he never needed that opportunity. And like he didn't jump at the idea of being an ace. I don't think he was ever a true ace. And Lester, at the peak of his powers, he was never a top 5 pitcher in baseball. I don't think Lester was ever that. He could have been. Like the argument was there. The argument was also there for Pettitte, but Pettitte was never in the number 1 conversation. Lester was never in the number 1 conversation. And we know how often the number 1 and number 2 conversation changes all the time. And for Pettitte and Lester not to be there, that just shows you that they weren't first ballot Hall of Famer. Boom. By the way, Lester didn't do steroids. Pettitte did. So like, I think that just eliminates Andy Pettitte for me.
And Andy Pettitte also, to that point, he finished 2nd in AL Cy Young voting in that 1996 season when he was 24 years old. And he actually had a couple better seasons, but he did go 21-8 that year. But like the ERA was 3.8. It was looking at the amount of wins that he had with the Yankees, and that's what they were voting on at the time. And that's why sometimes even the accolades, it's like when you actually look at the numbers, like he wouldn't have finished there in today's game because it's just the reality of the fact that he kind of gave up a lot of runs, but he was on a Yankees dynasty team that had Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Jorge Posada, like just so many elite guys that got him to 21 wins.
Yeah.
It can't be a Hall of Famer.
Shout out San Jacinto College in Texas. That's a JUCO power.
Yeah,
Jackson
right.
Rutledge went there. We love Rutledge. Got Uber stuff in the national system. Andy Pettitte, San Jac alum. Brandon Belt, San Jac alum. Roger Clemens, San Jac alum. 2 San Jac guys.
That's a good transition.
Let's get into it. Thanks. Thanks. Roger Clemens. Here we go. He's got the 3rd most strikeouts all time behind Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson. His 138 pitching WAR is 3rd highest all time behind Cy Young and Walter Johnson. His 354 wins are top 10 all time. His 7 Cy Youngs are the most in MLB history. That's 2 more than Randy Johnson. That's 3 more than Steve Carlton and Greg Maddux. His first Cy Young came at 23 years old. His last came at 41 years old. The argument can be made that Roger Clemens is the greatest pitcher of all time. 7 ERA titles, an MVP, 2 pitching triple crowns, 2 World Series championships. He checks every single box needed for induction and immortality except the honesty box. Clemens' name was in the Mitchell report 82 times in 2007, accusing him of using anabolic steroids. His name was brought up by his former trainer. Jose Canseco is on record saying that Clemens used steroids. Clemens obviously denied all this. Problem here is he denied these claims under oath before the U.S. Congress. In 2010, a federal grand jury indicted him on felony counts of perjury, contempt of Congress, and other charges. He obviously pled not guilty. The process led to a mistrial. 2 years later, he was found not guilty on all 6 counts of lying to Congress. What do you want to do? Do you want me to bring up the character clause again? I can read it for you. I read it for Vizquel. I'll read it here for Roger Clemens. Quote, voting shall be based upon the player's record, playing ability, integrity, sportsmanship, character, and contributions to the teams on which the player played. Player's record, amazing. Playing ability, second to none probably on the mound. Integrity, in the dumps. Sportsmanship, I don't know, don't really care to be honest. Character, in the dumps. You had to go through federal juries. And contributions to the team on which the player played. He passes that with flying colors. Do we ignore that just because the numbers are so unbelievably, stupidly, absurdly, fantastically outstanding? That's the big question. My thoughts. I sent this text to a friend. Here we go. Here's my line on steroid users in the Hall of Fame. If you were clean with your numbers, are you a first ballot Hall of Famer? If the answer is yes, then you get in. If you are clean with your numbers, are you a first ballot Hall of Famer? If the answer is maybe or no, then you don't get in. Roger Clemens, if he was clean with the numbers that he put up, is a unanimous Hall of Famer on the first ballot. He was not clean. He, even though proven not guilty, we could pretty clearly say lied to Congress. How do you deal with it? My answer is he's a Hall of Famer.
That was sick. He's a Hall of Famer. And my only thing with that argument, because we just don't know how the steroids affected each person. We don't know exactly when they started taking it. I have to let them all in or all none of them. I cannot play this game. And I respect your opinion on that. It's not a wrong opinion in any sense of the imagination. It's all up for your interpretation. That's why it's our vote. Roger Clemens' career is so nuts.
It's stupidly nuts.
He was so good. And I knew he was good. Clearly. But when you said 138 career pitching WAR, I almost threw up.
You think about that. You think about the names you hear and they send shivers down your spine. You think about career strikeouts, Nolan Ryan, Randy Johnson, Roger Clemens, full stop. You think about pitching WAR, Cy Young, Walter Johnson, Roger Clemens, full stop. Won 7 Cy Youngs.
7. And I think, so we just talked about Roger Clemens in comparison to a lot of other guys who you could make the argument either way. I think, for example, Scott Rollin should be in the Hall of Fame. I think Bobby Abreu has an outside shot. But then when you talk about the guys like Roger Clemens, when you're talking about other guys who should make it, and Scott Rollin in his 70 career WAR was phenomenal. And then you have 138, almost double.
Yeah. Foolish Baseball had a pretty funny tweet last week, maybe 2 weeks ago.
He's great. I love that dude.
He's hilarious, Bailey. He's hilarious. And he said, I love the Hall of Fame conversation because people are arguing about Bonds and Clemens. We have to look at their playing credentials. I haven't heard one person say, maybe Barry Bonds wasn't a good enough player to get it. Roger Clemens, if anybody says, I don't know about the numbers, then they should get checked. He's got the best numbers of all time of any pitcher. I mean, if you look at strikeouts, Nolan Ryan's the gold standard, but Clemens has a better ERA. Clemens has more pitching WAR. He's got more strikeouts and more Cy Young. the Cy Young Award is named after Cy Young, but he's got more strikeouts and more ERA titles than the two guys that are above him in pitching WAR. I mean, like, the argument's totally there that he's the greatest pitcher of all time, but he's never going to be known as the greatest pitcher of all time because he juiced. Is that the only thing being taken away from him, or is the Hall of Fame being taken away from him?
I'd vote for him if that's any consolation. His 1990 season was so crazy.
He's got some seasons where you're just like, God,
dude. I mean, like Barry Bonds, 1.93 ERA, finished 21-6, 228 innings pitched with a 1.08 WHIP. He was unhittable from 1986 to 1992 with the Red Sox. He was as good as it gets. And then he had a little bit of a blip in 1993, but then he's right back at it in 94 with a 2.85 ERA before the season got cut off. And then he goes to the Blue Jays, and he is elite. In 1997, 2.05 ERA. He went 21-7, struck out 292 batters in 264 innings. You just don't get that amount of innings from any pitcher ever anymore. And then he follows that up the next season with a 20-6 record, 2.65 ERA, 234 innings pitched, and 271 strikeouts. Then he goes to the Yankees, and he's still so good. And then he ends with Houston in 2005. Remember, he started in 1984, 1.87 ERA and 211 innings. He's a Hall of Famer. Sorry.
He had an ERA plus better than 210 3 times in his career.
Dude.
3 times. He was 110% better.
Mariano Rivera's career ERA plus 205 as a reliever. And Roger Clemens, I know he took steroids, but he was also pitching to guys who took steroids.
I want to watch every Clemens versus Bonds matchup ever happen. That has ever happened. I just want to sit down and binge it.
I think one of the greatest matchups of all time was Eric Gagne versus Barry Bonds. Remember that game where Barry Bonds hit that home run off Eric Gagne? I think it was in an All-Star game. It was something. It might have been. No, it was just Dodgers Giants.
Yeah. It was at AT&T, yeah?
Yeah, AT&T where he hit that home run. It was Eric Gagne just juiced up, throwing 101. I think he won the Cy Young that year or finished second in Cy Young voting as a reliever against Barry Bonds, who was also just juiced up. These guys looked like Tonka trucks.
Muscle
running.
hamsters.
It was an immovable object versus a speeding bullet.
God. I got to take a nap.
I'm like, oh God, too much iced coffee and Roger Clemens talk is like making my skin tingle.
Getting this juiced up, talking about guys that are juiced up, makes me just want to crash so hard.
We should take steroids for these pods.
Oh, true. That would actually be a good idea. Nobody's going to test us for this.
And if we apologize for it, it's all good.
It's all good. It's all good. Our name is not going to come up in any report 82 times. So we're good. 82 times in the Mitchell report. Every link you need is in the episode description. We will not put the Just Baseball merch link in the episode description 82 times.
We will not. But get your not gambling advice shirt for the holidays because your boy's on a heater. Bears +7, plain bathroom picks Tuesday on @JustGridironFans coming tomorrow. And thank you, everybody.